So some years ago, I was in India, and India to me is a very magical place. Some people find India, tough. Sometimes the hygiene's not the best. Sometimes the water really tips people upside down, literally. And I myself got sick right at the end of a trip. I was so happy that I got through the whole whatever 3 months of travel without that I did actually drink the water at the end, and yeah, I paid for it. It was not a I was not a happy chappy. So. I was living at that stage in the Krishnamurti Foundation. I was actually living in Krishnamurti's house. Now, if I'd just done, virtual or online kind of sharing with them, I would have had an experience of, the person that was running the foundation and everything else at that stage. But I chose to actually go there physically, and I had no idea what was going to happen. And when I arrived, the very moment this is an example of how funny things can happen. The moment I arrived, there's a woman sitting there. She's got tears and she looks at me, and I could see she was, maybe she was from the States. I didn't know, but she was actually from Canada. And she said, "Oh, what brings you here?" And I said, "Oh, yeah, I'm really interested in the Krishnamurti Foundation. So I was just coming to speak to the no, not the founder, but the director of." And she said, "Oh," she said, "Do you by any chance have any background in education?" And I said, "Yeah, yeah, I do." And she said, "Look, my mum, I could tell she was upset. My mum's been taken ill. They've given her, a couple of days at most. I need to get on a plane in just a few hours." And I looked after all English drama music here. Do you have any experience in that area? Now, it would just so happen that I did. So she said, would you like to look after the position for me?" And she said, "It's not much. It's just a few hours each day. She said, "It's mostly happy kids that you could," she said, "I can give you everything, but they're actually trying to find a replacement for me right now." So she took me into the office, and the director, interviewed me in about 3 minutes and said, "We're desperate. We'd love to have you." And that was it. And they put me up in Krishnamurti's house. So first of all, if I hadn't been in that physical place, I know that that wouldn't have happened. But
Mhm.
equally, then I was in Krishnamurti's house, and the energy of being in his house, because he's a famous philosopher and teacher, and he had a lot of great followers, and being in the energy of his house with his, so he allowed me to, because he was away at the time, he allowed me to look after his place and hang out with the gardener and his servants and all the rest of it. And so that completely changed my consciousness, because I was now not just virtually in a space, but I was physically in a space which was really, really, really open to that kind of flow of consciousness that he embodied. And so I, one night at 2 a.m. in the morning, and Derek, this is going to sound very mysterious to anybody who's listening to this, but it goes right back to the experience you had at Sedona with that higher dimensional being, with that indigenous elder. So 2 o'clock in the morning, there's a bang on the door, on Krishnamurti's door, and I thought, and it was a stormy night, it was raining heavily, and I thought, I wonder who be that. So I just waited, because usually the servants who'd become like my family by then, it was rather awkward for me to have servants. But anyway, I was paying for their upkeep, for their income and so on. So I figured, okay, we're kind of doing each other a service in that way. I waited and nobody answered. So I got up, I opened the door. It's, just imagine it's pelting down with the heaviest rain. And there's a woman there standing in white, no umbrella, and not a drop of rain on her. So I thought, that's rather odd. And she said, and again, this is the physical circumstances, she said, I'm an emissary of Lord Krishna. I've come here to give you this ancient scroll. You spoke about turkeys. She said, You, meaning me, you're blessed by Saraswati and the peacocks. So I want you to have this ancient scroll, keep it with you. You were a 16th century Raj. You had three relationships. In those three relationships, she said, "You're going to meet these three people again," and you're like, so this was actually accurate. I met exactly the three people that she described. She
Hmm.
said you'll meet three women. One will be, she said you'll recognize it. And she described their features, their career paths, all of that. Like one being a dancer, one being a singer, one being creative, all of this sort of thing. And she said and she described lots of my karma, lots of my past. I mean, it was just standing there at 2 o'clock in the morning with a woman who's untouched by rain is like one of these, again, out of the world experiences like yours. Then she says, "Here you go." She says, "That's all. That's all the message I've come to give you." She walks out in the rain without an umbrella. Not a single drop fell on her clothes. And she disappeared. Well, she disappeared into the storm because it was pretty heavy rain. Um, I went and woke the servants. Everybody was, a fluster at this kind of dramatic circumstance. They kept saying, "Oh, you're blessed by Krishna. You must be," because I had the scroll, which I've still got
Oh,
today
wow.
in New Zealand. Yeah, I still have that physical scroll. So I left it with my sister in New Zealand when I came and started traveling. And that scroll has chapter 12, verse 1 of the Bhagavad Gita, which just says, if you love the Lord with all your soul, you'll be filled with bliss and always protected. And at the top, it had a picture of Saraswati with all the peacocks. And it's just, extraordinary that would happen at that time in those physical circumstances out of the blue. We asked the security guard for any footage from the camera, from anything. Number one, he had to be there all night. He hadn't seen anybody enter or leave. And when we checked there was no footage, there's nothing. There was no record of her ever entering or leaving. But I had that scroll. I mean, that scroll was like magic.